On a sunny spring afternoon, Manhattan's Fifth Avenue buzzed with its usual luxury frenzy. Storefronts shimmered with exclusive pieces, drawing in awestruck tourists and deep-pocketed clientele. Among the most famous shops stood Sterling & Shine, a jewelry store renowned for its exclusivity. There, amidst the sparkle of diamonds and the scent of fresh flowers, only the elite felt at home. Dressed in a cream-tailored suit and carrying a modest leather handbag, Aaliyah Bennett stepped through the doors of Sterling & Shine. The sound of her heels echoed on the polished marble floor, catching attention, but not in the way she'd hoped. With her glowing skin and braided hair swept into an elegant bun, she was well aware of the stares, but admiration was absent. The store was nearly empty. Behind the counter, two saleswomen whispered while pretending to rearrange the displays. One of them, Madeline Carter, glanced up at the sound of Aaliyah's steps. Her face flickered with a subtle expression of disdain. "Can I help you?" Madeline asked, drawing out the words with the same laziness she reserved for customers who didn't look promising. "Yes, I'm looking for a diamond ring for a special occasion. Something classic but with a modern touch," Aaliyah replied, maintaining her confident posture despite the condescension in Madeline's tone. Madeline hesitated, scanning Aaliyah from head to toe with a critical gaze. Then, she smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was laced with irony. "Our prices might be a bit high. Perhaps I can show you something in a more accessible range." Aaliyah blinked, processing the insinuation. Her voice remained steady. "I'm interested in the ring from the main display, the one with the emerald-cut diamond." Madeline didn't bother to hide her impatient sigh as she crossed her arms. "That's a one-of-a-kind piece. We don't have replicas in other sizes." She paused, studying Aaliyah as if she already knew the answer. "Maybe you'd prefer to explore some other stores nearby." The tension in the air was palpable. Aaliyah took a deep breath, resisting the urge to confront the woman on the spot. Instead, she turned and walked out of the store. Outside, the city's crisp breeze did little to wash away the sting of humiliation. Aaliyah was the CEO and founder of one of the most successful startups in the financial market. But in that jewelry store, she'd been treated like she didn't belong. She stopped at the corner, looking back at the gleaming Sterling & Shine storefront. Beneath her serene expression, something was brewing. This incident was far from over. That night, Aaliyah Bennett sat in her sleek, modern penthouse on the Upper West Side, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Manhattan. The city lights sparkled against the night sky, but her mind was miles away. Sitting on the couch with a glass of wine in hand, she replayed every word the jewelry store attendant had said. "Maybe you'd prefer to explore other stores," she muttered to herself, the sarcastic tone still ringing in her ears. Across from her sat Elena Parker, her longtime friend and a mergers and acquisitions attorney. As she listened to the story, Elena raised an eyebrow and sipped her coffee. "And you just left?" Aaliyah Bennett, billionaire and TechFlow innovator, got brushed off and let it slide? "That doesn't sound like you." Aaliyah chuckled, though there was a hint of frustration in her voice. "Yeah, it doesn't. But sometimes you have to choose your battles." Elena leaned forward, arms crossed. "Then choose this one." The comment hung in the air like a challenge. Aaliyah set her glass down on the coffee table and leaned back. A slow smile began to spread across her face, the kind that always made Elena wary. "Sterling & Shine," Aaliyah mused. "Do you know who owns it?" Elena immediately grabbed her laptop and began typing. "Let's see. The jewelry store is owned by a small family holding company, run by a group of second-generation investors. Not much innovation or expansion in recent years. It's basically a traditional model with little flexibility." Aaliyah stood up and walked to the expansive glass window. The city below pulsed with endless possibilities. What if I wanted to buy it? Elena looked up from her screen. Sterling and Shine isn't on the market. Businesses like that rarely sell. But everything's for sale at the right price. The conversation sparked a flood of ideas. For Aaliyah, this wasn't about profit or expansion. It was about something bigger. It was about sending a message, teaching a lesson. The next morning, Aaliyah contacted her team of financial advisors. The meeting, held in a glass-walled conference room at her downtown office, was brief and to the point. I want to acquire Sterling and Shine, identify the shareholders, evaluate its market value, and make contact. One of the advisors hesitated. Sterling and Shine? Ms. Bennett, with all due respect, this company doesn't exactly align with strategic opportunities. The luxury market. She cut him off with a wave of her hand. I'm not interested in strategic opportunities. Just follow the instructions. As the advisors exchanged curious glances, Aaliyah's resolve was crystal clear. Within 24 hours, her team had already initiated contact with the jewelry store's representatives. That evening, Aaliyah was in her personal office when Elena called. I just got an update, Elena said, her voice tinged with excitement. It looks like the owners are more open to the idea than we expected. They've faced financial struggles over the past 2 years. Good, Aaliyah replied sharply. Let's make it happen. As she hung up, a wave of satisfaction washed over her. The woman who had been dismissed as irrelevant was about to become the new owner of Sterling and Shine. But this wasn't just about buying the store. Aaliyah had something far greater in mind. Transforming the jewelry brand from the inside out and ensuring that no one else would ever experience the humiliation she had endured. The week flew by for Aaliyah. Endless meetings, contract reviews, and constant calls with her legal and financial teams filled her days. Every step was meticulously planned. She knew that a deal like this, despite its personal undertones, demanded professional precision. By Thursday afternoon, Aaliyah was in a conference room surrounded by her advisors and attorneys. One of the analysts began his presentation with charts and numbers. Sterling and Shine has an estimated market value of around $25 million, he explained. However, considering their accumulated debts and declining sales over the last 3 years, we believe we can close the deal for approximately $18 million. Elena, sitting beside Aaliyah, crossed her arms and fixed her gaze on her friend. Is that within your comfort zone? Aaliyah gave a subtle smile. I'll pay the $18 million. But I don't want them knowing how far I'm willing to go. Negotiate hard. I want them to see this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Aaliyah's team executed the plan, and within a week, the offer was accepted by Sterling and Shine's owners. The transaction surprised Manhattan's luxury market. Aaliyah kept the process under wraps until the final documents were signed. On the day of the contract's completion, Aaliyah visited the building where the previous owners held their offices. Seated at the negotiation table, she greeted them with a firm handshake and a polite smile. As the lawyers finalized the details, the owners had no idea that the new proprietor was the same woman they'd dismissed weeks earlier. Once the papers were signed, the leader of the group, a gray-haired man with a friendly tone, stood and extended his hand. Sterling and Shine is in good hands, he said. Aaliyah simply smiled. Yes, it is. A few days later, news of the acquisition broke. A young, black, billionaire entrepreneur purchasing Sterling and Shine made headlines everywhere. While the public and critics debated the acquisition's impact, Aaliyah worked tirelessly behind the scenes. She wasn't content with merely owning the store. She wanted to completely transform it. Her first step was to call a meeting with the staff at the flagship store. That morning, she walked into the jewelry store with her team, dressed in an elegant blue dress, exuding confidence that filled the room. The sound of her heels clicking on the marble floor turned every head. Madeline, standing behind the counter rearranging a display, looked up and froze. The color drained from her face as she recognized Aaliyah. "Good morning," Aaliyah said, locking eyes with Madeline, her calm smile unwavering. "It's time for some changes around here." The staff gathered in the store's conference room. Aaliyah stood at the front, Elena by her side, and began to speak. "My name is Aaliyah Bennett. I'm the new owner of Sterling & Shine. Some of you may recognize me." Her eyes lingered briefly on Madeline, whose face was a mask of shock. "I visited this store a few weeks ago and experienced something that should never happen here, or anywhere." The room fell into a heavy silence. Everyone knew what she was referring to, Madeline's discriminatory behavior. From today onward, this store will have new standards, new practices, and a new future. Sterling & Shine will no longer be just a jewelry store. It will be a symbol of inclusion, respect, and excellence. Her statement was met with a mix of surprise and relief from the staff, many of whom had felt the strain of recent years. But Aaliyah wasn't finished. She turned to Madeline, her voice firm. "And unfortunately, not everyone will be part of that future. Madeline, your conduct does not align with the values we're setting. You are dismissed, effective immediately." Madeline tried to respond, but no words came. Under Aaliyah's resolute gaze, she left the room, knowing her actions had finally caught up with her. The room remained silent until Aaliyah continued. "For those who stay, this is the beginning of a new era. Let's rebuild together." After the meeting, the energy at Sterling & Shine shifted entirely. The remaining staff, mostly sales associates and assistants, were both curious and apprehensive. In the days that followed, Aaliyah made it a point to be present at the store, observing operations, chatting with employees, and gaining a deeper understanding of their daily challenges. She wasted no time implementing changes. The first step was a complete overhaul of employee training. Partnering with experts in customer service and diversity, Aaliyah introduced a program called Reflecting Respect, designed to teach empathy and inclusivity skills. Sterling & Shine doesn't just sell jewelry, Aaliyah said during the inaugural training session. "We sell experiences. Everyone who walks through these doors should feel like they belong." Employees, previously accustomed to operating under a rigid and elitist system, began to engage with the company's new values. During the training sessions, Aaliyah shared her own experience, not directly calling out Madeline, but making it clear that prejudice and discrimination would not be tolerated. Meanwhile, physical changes to the store were underway. The old decor, heavy and traditional, was replaced with a modern, welcoming design. Displays that previously showcased only the most expensive pieces now included items accessible to a broader range of customers. The space was reimagined to feel less intimidating and more inviting. Outside the store, Aaliyah launched a new marketing campaign that grabbed the city's attention: "Jewelry for everyone." The slogan appeared on billboards across Manhattan, featuring models from diverse backgrounds, ages, and styles wearing Sterling & Shine pieces. The message was clear: exclusivity didn't mean exclusion. It meant celebrating diversity. The initiative sparked buzz on social media. Influencers and public figures began visiting the store, praising its refreshed approach. The public responded with enthusiasm, and sales began to climb. One morning, an elderly woman walked into the store and was warmly greeted by a sales associate. Surprised by the welcoming atmosphere, she remarked, "This feels different. The last time I was here, I felt invisible." Aaliyah, who was nearby, overheard the comment and approached with a smile. "We're here to change that," she said. "Everyone is welcome at Sterling & Shine." Moments like these reinforced Aaliyah's purpose. Each satisfied customer was a reminder that the change she'd set in motion was making an impact. But the journey wasn't without its challenges. Some long-standing staff members resisted the changes, seeing them as a break from the store's traditions. One older employee, Edward, confronted Aaliyah during a tense moment. "This is all so radical. Sterling and Shine has always been about exclusivity. These changes might hurt our luxury image." Aaliyah stayed calm and replied, "Exclusivity doesn't mean turning people away, Edward. It means offering something special to everyone who walks in. True luxury isn't about the price of an item. It's about how it makes someone feel." Edward had no counterargument but looked thoughtful. Over time, even the most resistant employees began to see the benefits of the changes. The store's transformation was just beginning, but Aaliyah knew the true impact would unfold over the long term. She continued investing in training, redesigning processes, and launching community initiatives to strengthen Sterling and Shine's connection to its customers. One quiet evening, as she gazed out of her office window overlooking the store below, Aaliyah felt a wave of satisfaction. The humiliation she'd experienced weeks earlier had become the foundation for something far greater. As days turned into weeks, the transformations at Sterling and Shine began drawing attention from others in the luxury sector. Some praised Aaliyah's modern and inclusive vision, while others criticized what they called the dilution of a traditional brand. One such critic was Charles Whitmore, a prominent magnate in the jewelry industry. Owner of a chain of competing stores, he often positioned himself as a defender of luxury traditions. During an interview on a business talk show, he remarked, "I don't think these changes are sustainable. When you dilute the concept of exclusivity, you lose prestige. Sterling and Shine has been in decline for years, and these actions only accelerate that." The interview went viral, but instead of deterring interest, it fueled even more curiosity about the new Sterling and Shine. When journalists asked Aaliyah for her thoughts on the statement, she responded with grace, "Prestige isn't something you buy, it's something you earn. And I believe we're earning it by making every customer feel valued." Behind the scenes, however, the criticisms weighed on her. One evening, during dinner with Elena, Aaliyah finally opened up. "Why is it so hard for some people to understand that inclusion doesn't diminish value?" Elena, ever pragmatic, replied, "Because they see the world as a slice of pie. They think if you give something to someone else, there's less left for them. But what you're doing is different. You're showing that the pie can grow bigger for everyone." Inspired by her friend's words, Aaliyah decided it was time to take things beyond the physical store. She began designing a special collection of jewelry that embodied the spirit of the new Sterling and Shine. She called it Light for All, a line inspired by real stories of people who had overcome barriers. Each piece featured a unique design and came with a small message about resilience and inclusion. To launch the new collection, Aaliyah planned a grand event at the store itself. She transformed the space into a gallery, displaying not just the jewelry but the stories behind them. It was a bold move, but one that felt deeply authentic. The night of the launch arrived, and the store glowed from the inside out. A line of guests, including influencers, celebrities, and journalists, formed at the entrance. Aaliyah, wearing an exclusive necklace from the new collection, personally greeted each one. When it was time for her speech, she stepped onto a small stage set up in the center of the store. Lights focused on her as the crowd fell silent. "Sterling and Shine has always been a brand of exceptional jewelry," she began. "But I want it to also be a brand of exceptional stories. We're not just adorning people, we're honoring who they are." The speech was met with enthusiastic applause. But at the back of the room, Charles Whitmore stood silently, observing. He hadn't been officially invited, but his curiosity had brought him there. Toward the end of the evening, Whitmore approached Aaliyah as the guests mingled. "I have to admit," he began with a dry smile, "you've managed to bring something new to this industry Something it was missing, perhaps? Aaliyah replied, her tone light but resolute. Whitmore shrugged. Maybe, but I'm curious to see how long this will last. Aaliyah didn't hesitate. That depends on us, Charles. This industry can evolve if we're willing. As he walked away, Aaliyah knew challenges lay ahead. But the success of that night proved she was on the right path. Although the launch of the Light for All collection was a success, Aaliyah knew real change was built in the everyday grind. Transforming Sterling and Shine required more than dazzling campaigns and inspiring speeches. It was hard work, and not everyone was happy with the company's new direction. One morning, as Aaliyah reviewed sales reports, she received an urgent call from Victor, the newly appointed manager of the flagship store. He sounded uneasy. Aaliyah, we need to talk. Some longtime clients are canceling orders and filing complaints. They claim the store's new approach is diluting the exclusivity they've always expected from the brand. The news was troubling, but not entirely unexpected. Aaliyah sighed and replied calmly, invite those clients to meet with me. I want to hear their concerns directly. A few days later, she sat down with 3 of Sterling and Shine's legacy clients in an elegant meeting room within the store. All were figures from high society, accustomed to luxury and exclusivity. Aaliyah listened attentively as they voiced their critiques. The store has lost its essence, one woman, an heiress from one of New York's wealthiest families, said. We used to trust that everything here was curated for people like us. Now it feels like just anyone can walk in and buy something. Aaliyah remained composed, despite the elitist tone. I understand your concern, she replied, but Sterling and Shine's essence has never been about turning people away. It's always been about offering high-quality pieces that delight and inspire. That hasn't changed. Another client, a real estate mogul, interjected. But it has changed. This new campaign and these more accessible pieces are diluting the brand. Aaliyah leaned forward, locking eyes with him. With all due respect, Mr. Ellison, the true value of a brand isn't just in who it serves, but in how it's remembered. Sterling and Shine isn't losing its exclusivity. It's redefining what it means to be exclusive. Everyone who steps into this store, no matter who they are, should leave feeling special. There was a moment of silence. The clients didn't seem entirely convinced, but Aaliyah knew she wouldn't win everyone over immediately. Still, she stood firm, confident her vision was the right path forward. Despite challenges with traditional clients, the numbers told a different story. Sales were steadily rising, and Sterling and Shine was attracting a younger, more diverse audience who previously never considered the store an option. However, success brought new competition. Charles Whitmore, who had attended the Light for All launch, decided to strike back. He launched an aggressive ad campaign emphasizing the tradition and unshakable exclusivity of his stores, reinforcing the notion that luxury brands should remain untouchable. The campaign sowed doubts among some of Sterling and Shine's smaller investors, who began questioning if Aaliyah's changes were going too far. During a board meeting, one of the shareholders raised the issue. Aaliyah, aren't we straying too far from our traditional audience? The luxury market has clear expectations, and we can't ignore them. Aaliyah's response was firm. I understand the concerns, but Sterling and Shine isn't abandoning the luxury market. We're leading its evolution. If we cling to the past, we'll be left behind. The tension in the room was palpable, but Aaliyah knew she had data and results to back her up. She presented charts showing consistent sales growth and an expanding customer base. Even the skeptics had to admit the numbers were impressive. Still, Aaliyah felt the weight of the transformation on her shoulders. She knew she was battling not just internal resistance but also the external pressures of an industry deeply rooted in tradition. At the end of the long day, Aaliyah sat in her office, gazing out at the illuminated cityscape. Manhattan's twinkling lights served as a constant reminder that innovation always faced resistance but also brought rewards. She knew Sterling and Shine still had much to prove, but she was ready for the fight ahead. Months had passed since the acquisition, and Sterling and Shine was deep into its transformation. The flagship store, now fully remodeled, was busier than ever. New customers were drawn by the inclusive campaigns and the modern jewelry designs. Yet, Aaliyah knew there was still one battle to win, convincing the luxury sector and its staunchest critics that her vision represented the future. One morning, while reviewing sales reports, Aaliyah received an unexpected email. It was an invitation to the International Luxury Summit, a prestigious event where leaders from the world's top brands gathered to discuss trends and innovations. Charles Whitmore was slated as one of the keynote speakers, and the invitation included a request for Aaliyah to present a panel on Sterling and Shine's transformation. When Elena heard the news, she exclaimed, "This is the perfect stage to show the world what you're doing." Aaliyah smiled, her expression serious. "It's more than that. It's a chance to redefine what luxury can mean." The day of the event arrived, and Aaliyah entered the packed auditorium, feeling the weight of expectation. Dressed in a sharp black suit and wearing a necklace from the Light for All collection, she exuded confidence. But as she stepped onto the stage, she noticed the skeptical gazes of many in the audience, including Charles Whitmore, seated in the front row. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen," she began. "My name is Aaliyah Bennett, and I am the CEO of Sterling and Shine. When I took over the brand, I knew I was stepping into an industry famously resistant to change. But I also knew that to survive and thrive, even luxury needed to evolve." Her presentation featured compelling numbers, stories, and images. Aaliyah highlighted how the changes had increased sales, expanded the customer base, and redefined the brand's value. But the most powerful moment came when she shared stories of customers who had felt included in a luxury space for the first time. "A young man recently walked into our store," Aaliyah shared. "He was nervous, believing that places like this weren't meant for him. He left not just with a piece from our collection, but with a new view of himself. To me, that's true luxury. Creating connections that go beyond the material." The auditorium was silent for a beat. Then, the applause began, hesitant at first but quickly swelling into a standing ovation. Even Charles Whitmore clapped, though his smile remained reserved. After the presentation, Aaliyah was approached by journalists, business leaders, and even some of her harshest critics. Many admitted they had underestimated her vision. "You've changed my perspective," a renowned designer admitted. "Maybe luxury does need a bit more soul." As the event wound down, Charles Whitmore approached Aaliyah. "Congratulations," he said. "I never thought anyone could challenge this industry's traditions and come out on top." Aaliyah smiled. "The secret isn't to challenge, Charles. It's to expand. Tradition and modernity don't have to be opposites." He nodded thoughtfully before bidding her farewell. Back at Sterling and Shine, Aaliyah knew the moment was more than just a personal victory. It was a redefinition of what the brand stood for. She called a meeting with her team to share her long-term vision, expanding the brand globally while maintaining its commitment to inclusion and excellence. That night, as she gazed at Manhattan's glittering skyline from her penthouse, Aaliyah reflected on the journey so far. From being dismissed at a jewelry store to transforming Sterling and Shine into a beacon of innovation, she had proven that meaningful change was possible. Sterling and Shine, now shining brighter than ever, had become a symbol of how respect, inclusion, and excellence could coexist in the world of luxury. And for Aaliyah, that was the greatest treasure of all.